Hello, everyone. This is Brian Hall at Service Year Alliance. Thank you for joining us for this month's webinar topic, Best Practices for Engaging Opportunity Youth in Service Years. Before I hand things over to my colleague, Monique Ellington, who is your presenter today, I just wanted to remind you of a few things. First of all, this is, a webinar and part of a full series that we always do each month. Next month, we are taking a month off to look for August. And as the webinars go, we have you on mute, but if you have any questions or any issues during the webinar, please type them into the chat function or the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that as Monique goes along in her presentation. And we may not get to your question right away, depending on the flow of the presentation, but we will all come back to the Q&A definitely by the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Monique Ellington.
Hello and welcome again. Can everyone hear me? Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Hi, welcome again. My name is Monique Ellington. I'm the Chicago Director for Service Year Alliance. And over the past 2 years, I focused on best practices for engaging opportunity youth in service years by first, of course, examining the current state of opportunity youth and also working to determine the current landscape of opportunity youth serving service year programs. We have learned through that process that there are a lot of service year programs that engage opportunity youth that are overprescribed. Therefore, we're working to expand these opportunities, but also making sure that the models are conducive for the growth of opportunity youth as they move forward. In the fall of 2007, Service Year Alliance hosted a convening where we gathered programs that have been engaging opportunity youth for an extended period of time to uncover some of the best practices and share those with the field. As Brian mentioned, as a follow-up to this webinar, we will share with you the best practice guide for engaging opportunity youth in service years. We would like to thank our partner, the Schultz Family Foundation, who has supported this work over the past year, especially with working with the webinar, the guide, and also the convening. This work would not have been possible without their support, so we really thank Schultz Family Foundation. And then I'd like to just talk a little bit about, I think many of you are probably familiar with Service Year Alliance, but we are a nonprofit organization that is working to make a year of service a common expectation and opportunity for all Americans. Service Year accomplishes this through a number of partnerships, and through our 4-tiered strategy that connects and supports service year programs. Particularly, we focus on developing strategies in the following areas. Our Service Year Exchange was our online platform that allows opportunity youth or young people in general to explore various service year positions across the country, as well as service year programs, identifying candidates that they may fulfill open positions. In addition to that, we work with the national recruitment and awareness of core member support. One of the things that we learned right away is that there are a lot of young people across the country that are just not familiar with service as a strategy for themselves. We're working to really raise the bar and raise awareness around how a service year can be a great next step for young people. I work, and Brian works, also a part of our growth team, which is we'd like to expand and grow service years, but we want these programs to be quality programs. Additionally, we're working with policy and advocacy. Our team there is really focusing on making sure that there are strategies and policy to make sure that we can continue to offer service years to young Americans across the country. And we want to advocate for the best practices that would allow individuals to thrive in a service year program. In a moment, you will hear a little bit more from a former opportunity youth, but I thought it would be best to start with identifying who are opportunity youth, who are these individuals. And these are young people between the ages of 16 to 24 that have been disconnected from work and school. Later in this presentation, I will explore different ways that we can think about that particular population. Because of course we know a 16-year-old that has dropped out of high school is very different than a 24-year-old with a bachelor's degree that just hasn't been connected to opportunities. It's important as we think about opportunity youth that they are not a homogeneous group, but rather a group of individuals with diverse sets of assets, barriers that require individualized supports. Now, video.
I wanted to build a better life, be a role model for students who come from the neighborhood like me. My parents, they were recent immigrants from Mexico. They were working 60 hours a week. The neighborhood that we grew up in, it was a working class, poor neighborhood. I would see people shoot at each other from across the street. These are the people that you're looking up to. I got expelled from high school on the first day. I was just hanging around, waiting to be placed at an alternative school. I was involved in an altercation that led me to be put in juvenile hall. When I came out, I was like, I have to make a change. I did my service year at Youth Conservation Corps. The diverse experiences that I had during my service year gave me the opportunity and built the capacity in me that I didn't know that I had. I figured if I could go from doing presentations in elementary schools to organizing food drives, I could do anything. The Conservation Corps became the vehicle that I needed to transform my life. One of the important things that came out of my service year was me learning that I can help people as a job, working with young people and seeing that they listen to me and how my story helped them believe that they could also make the change and they could also transform into whoever they wanted to become. That gave me the confidence to expect more. Today, I am the program director of the SHINE Educational Leadership Program at Waukegan High School. We help the students understand who they want to be, what career path they want to take. Losing yourself in service gives you perspective. Through service to others is how you truly find who you are.
As you can hear from the story from Jermaine, we can see how a service year opportunity changed his life and put him on a pathway of success. We're going to continue to explore why a service year can be one of the best strategies for Opportunity Youth. So let's think about why, I will discuss why we should engage Opportunity Youth in service year programs. We believe that service years are uniquely designed to support Opportunity Youth because they offer an internal infrastructure to support Opportunity Youth. For example, they offer a caring and safe environment. I think one of the most important things is that in a service year, whether it's 6 months or 12 months or any variation of time, the extended period of time that Opportunity Youth need to really build their skills, service year programs offer that. They also provide a comprehensive way for Opportunity Youth to really understand a career path and develop the 21st century skills that they can use in order to propel themselves forward. Additionally, they create habits for citizenship and civic engagement. So this is a comprehensive way for Opportunity Youth to really build their skills in a service year, test out things, and learn from their experiences. We believe that when there are well-constructed service year programs that offer a range of supports, Opportunity Youth are in a position where they can change their circumstances and ultimately change the trajectory of their lives. I think one of the things that is important to highlight, what makes a service year experience that is embedded with these strategies for and offering a range of supports, is really important that we think about the differences between maybe a regular workforce development program. And what we've learned is that for what makes service year programs really unique in that sense is that while Opportunity Youth would be gaining skills in a service year, it also helps redefine them in their relationship to society. One of the most important things, it helps them to uncover and explore what their purpose is. Lastly, it helps them to address during that time period social and emotional development issues in a supportive environment where they're able to work together with service year practitioners to overcome some of the challenges that they're facing. We previously learned that a lot of times youth are not exposed to mentors or caring individuals that can really help them to gain a pathway of success, discover diverse career options, and then also help them pursue their purpose. So service year programs are unique in that sense. So as we think about particularly why a service year program could be the best model, we said earlier that many of the programs are overprescribed. So we really want to work at making sure that we can grow the number of opportunities so that our young people are getting the right types of supports in order to be able to move forward. So while there has been, over the last years, probably since about 2011, a decrease in the number of opportunity youth, largely due to the change in the economic stability of our country, but also there have been increased efforts to engage opportunity youth. According to a recent report released by Measure of America's Social Science Research Council this year in March of this year, the more than a million reasons to hope youth disconnection in America, we learned that there are about 4.6 million disconnected youth in America. And we will then share more of this report in our follow-up email to you. But for the purposes of this conversation, I thought it would be necessary to just highlight very key areas where individuals can grow. So we've seen this decline in 2016, but there's still a demand for more positions for opportunity youth. We also can see that there is a huge disconnection, more so in certain individuals that represent the opportunity youth population. Particularly, we've learned that Native Americans and Blacks are often more disconnected than maybe Latinos and Asians and whites. There are also some other key factors that are pointed out and disparities that are pointed out in the report. As I mentioned, we will share with you. Some of those other ones include things like there are more young women are probably less disconnected than males. However, what we've learned even from that is that it depends on whether or not, and there are some disparities there because sometimes with the young women, they're becoming mothers or they're engaged in marriage or which would merit some additional resources. Additionally, for the educational background, many opportunity youth are typically about 9 times more likely to have left high school, and even fewer opportunity youth have a bachelor's degree. There are a number of opportunity youth that have been institutionalized, so they account for about 0.3%. And so you may be working with these individuals as they're coming out of these institutions, or perhaps working with institutions to better engage them. And then lastly, I think it's really important to highlight, especially for this conversation and engaging opportunity youth and service years, is that many disconnected youth, about 3.2 times likely to not live with their parents. And what would that mean for you guys is that they're not going to benefit from the emotional, social, and financial support of their families. So they will be solely relying on themselves in order to get ahead. So it's really important that we think about that as we examine opportunity youth to offer the right type of support. And I'll discuss those more in detail a little later on. Let's take a closer look at opportunity youth. I think it's really important to really look at the continuum of opportunity youth because no one young person is the same, just like no person is the same. So before we do that, though, I think it's really important that we focus on ensuring that we look at opportunity youth with an asset framing. And really what that means is our ability to look at opportunity youth based on what their contributions can be to society rather than the barriers that they have on society. So in this conversation, we will explore a couple of things about opportunity youth that are really important. One of the common misconceptions of opportunity youth are that they are disconnected from work and school because they lack a desire to be successful. And what we've learned that's important to understand is that typically opportunity youth live in economically disadvantaged communities that are largely impacted by concentrated poverty, systems of oppression, and inequality of resources and opportunity. So it's not really that they don't desire to be successful. They're not in an environment that will support them being successful. Additionally, because of being a part of these communities, they lack or have little or no opportunities to help them lead productive lives. Additionally, opportunity youth often lack the social capital and agency to really change their circumstances. So they're going to need programs like service year programs and individuals to help them move to a pathway of success. Opportunity youth are also very optimistic. Despite all these challenges, they're still optimistic about having a successful future and obtaining success, both personal and economic success. And then lastly, some misconceptions are that, opportunity youth don't want to work. And what we've learned is that they have a willingness to work. They want to be successful, and they want to develop both personally and professionally. This next slide really focuses on their points of disconnection. This is really important information because it allows for us to better understand what caused certain behaviors or situations or barriers that really contributed to their disconnection, that in order for us to work with the opportunity youth to uncover the best strategies to support them in order to prevent disconnection in the future. And in that case, sometimes we'll have opportunity youth that have dropped out of high school, and so they need to go back and complete school, but they may have some fears around going back to the same educational institution to do that. So we may need to uncover where are the other places that they can actually obtain their GED. Maybe a formal classroom setting did not work well for them, so maybe there are other approaches to that work. In addition to that, it's important to think about some of the social issues that may have caused them to maybe be pushed out of school, or they had disciplinary issues, how to work with them, for them to tell you what's the best way that I can meet my goals or achieve my goals without, and not be disconnected again. So there are also opportunity youth that did not enter college because maybe school wasn't for them, or they didn't know how to navigate the process to enter college. So there are several different points of disconnection that we can consider as we speak with opportunities to better find the best approaches to making sure that they will be successful. For the purposes of this conversation and this guide, and I will caution, this is probably not universal language, but it helps us to help programs identify the appropriate individuals that work best in their program. So the purpose of this conversation and the guide, I'm going to categorize opportunity youth into 3 distinct categories. The first one is the more engaged youth. This is a young person that has probably achieved some level of vocational training or attainment. They've gotten a college degree, but they may have not been able to find long-term or permanent success. And then there may be an underserved youth, which these are individuals that may have had some college. Perhaps they have a high school diploma. Perhaps they may have taken a few college courses. Perhaps they even may have some employment experience, but have not been able to maintain long-term success. And then there's a different category, and these are probably difficult to engage opportunity youth. These are opportunity youth that have maybe dropped out of school and have been disconnected for an extended period of time. Most of the time, likely have not been engaged since the age of 16. And this particular situation, a lot of times this is where most people think that all opportunity youth fall. So I'll hear from the field, the service year field, things like, we don't have the capacity to support these individuals. So I invite you to think about your program model and what types of individuals can you engage. We've also learned that there are some times where service programs have a requirement where you must have a college degree. I implore you to really look at your program model to determine, is a college degree necessary? Could I offer a young person a position within your organization by offering some training and support as they begin to step into their roles for service? So it's really important that you think about who are the opportunity youth, and always keep it in mind that this is not a homogeneous group, and each one of them are going to have different types of issues or challenges that they're hoping to overcome, but they're also coming to your program with several different assets that can support them. On this slide, we wanted to take a moment to just kind of talk about some of the common assets, barriers, and particularly some of the implications of poverty. This is a way for you as a service year program to think about some of the challenges that any young person can come into your program with. And I know we just categorized different individuals, but as you know, life happens. And so whether or not they are an engaged youth or hard to engage youth, they may still have some of these same problems throughout the course of their the program year. So some key aspects that I think that you should think about is, as we think about engaging opportunity youth, many of them are going to come with this full list of assets. Other skills are going to need to be honed throughout the program. Some common barriers to think about are a lot of them may have periods of homelessness, or they may have limited job skills or work experiences. Some of them will be managing parenthood, regardless of whether they are difficult to engage or easier to engage. It just really depends on the young person that you're speaking to. And then think about where your service year program is positioned within a community. What are some of the challenges of that community? And if the community is working in concentrated poverty, there are going to be some other issues that young people are going to come to your program with. But we believe that if you construct a well-designed program, you can start to think through what key partnerships or what relationships do you need to build to better support opportunity youth in your program. One of the best practices that we learned, because you may be thinking, well, if these are blanketed issues or assets or barriers that we will need to address in our program, what are some ways that we can do this? And one of the best practices that we've seen is that many of the programs that engage opportunity youth perform an initial assessment. In the guide, you will see very clear questions that you should be asking young people as they, during the recruitment period, to better understand if you can support them in your program. And it really speaks to a strengths assessment and really asking questions around what are their strengths, what are they bringing, and really examining a young person based on those. Helping them, and this initial assessment should be conducted in partnership with the opportunity youth. So you want to have conversations with them about some of their existing or potential barriers that have maybe prevented success in the past, or present barriers. So it's important to ask very key questions that signal to you as a practitioner, how will I better support this person? Additionally, in addition to that, it's important to begin to work with opportunity youth to build a network of support. And so some of the ways that you can work with them to do that is by goal setting strategies, or thinking about how they might engage with various young people within the program. Who are their supports? Who may be babysitting for them while they go through this? Who is rooting for their success? So understanding those types of things are really important. It's also really important to ask questions around their educational attainment. We may assume that every person, when they finish our program, will want to go on to college. But what we may find is that they need to get a job right away. So what are their goals related to education? Do they plan to use their educational award at a later time? Helping them to navigate that process. What financial aid will they need? So it's really important to just really work with young people within your program to uncover what their goals are and help them to achieve them. Addition to that, we'll talk a little bit more about this, about what program offerings we should have in programs, but specifically, what type of credentials do they want to attain? What specialized training do they need to take part in order to move forward in a particular career path? All of these questions and examples of these questions will be listed in the guide for you to better understand and have an initial idea. It's really important, I can't stress this enough, that when working with opportunity youth, that we do not define their goals for them, that this is a participatory process where they're working both in conjunction with their network of supports as well as service year practitioners to come together to determine what goals they're going to accomplish throughout the service year and post the service year. This next section, we want to take some time to really just talk about some of the essential program elements that any program should have when thinking about engaging opportunity youth. There are 4 areas that we have learned work best. That's number 1, academic training. 2, career exploration, navigation, and placement. 3 is leadership development and supportive services. So I'm going to go a little deeper in each one of those categories as to what I'm speaking of. For the educational, the academic training, we see from programs like Youthbuild USA, where they allow young people to achieve their high school diploma or credential while also building up skills in construction and other areas to better serve them. It's really important that young people have an opportunity to finish school, gain skills while they're in the programs, but also attain credentials and credentialing that will ensure that they will have post-employment opportunities as they move forward. So the guide really specifies and goes very deep into how a young person can really benefit from academic training. So perhaps your program may not have academic training right now. It's really important, though, that you build a network of supports outside of your organization. Maybe it's identifying where the local GED classes are. Maybe it is working with high schools that may be able to offer, especially if young people are still at the age where they can go back to school. Connecting them to academic training so that they can achieve educational success. One of the next essential elements is career exploration, navigation, and placement. We've learned that from programs such as Green City Forest based in New York, Baltimore Civic Works, and American Youth Works that's actually based in Texas, that is where Opportunity Youth have thrived in programs that offer them the opportunity to have some work-based learning where they're through their service model. Well, while they're serving, they're also learning, and allows them to really connect within a career. It's often sometimes for Opportunity Youth, their first experience with engaging with a career. And sometimes, in many cases, Opportunity Youth have not been exposed to careers beyond a doctor or police or lawyer, individuals that they probably see every day in their communities. They have, and so the thought is that there are not other areas that I can pursue. By having these embedded within the program, it offers young people the opportunity to really try out a career path. And then offering some career shadowing and technical skills. It's really important, in addition to that, that Opportunity Youth are being engaged from the very start. For programs such as Green City Forest and Baltimore Civic Works, they really engage their employer network from the beginning. That means the employers are working with service year practitioners to, number 1, identify candidates for the program. Secondly, serving as mentors and providing post-service placement opportunities, so that Opportunity Youth get a very real feel for what is expected of them when they move on to their career path. We see in programs such as Public Allies a very robust leadership development training that they offer individuals in their program. But some of you may not be able to offer an extensive leadership development training within your program. But some examples that we've seen work really well is allowing Opportunity Youth to increase their responsibility as your service year term goes on, asking them to lead projects, or offering opportunities for them to mentor and advise other members, or perhaps if they've graduated or moved on from your program and are now serving in more of a leadership role, that they can share out their experiences from what they learned. What I've learned right away in working and talking with young Opportunity Youth is that they benefit best from those peer-to-peer engagements, where young people are sharing what they've experienced, what they've overcome with other people that are that come from similar backgrounds. So in your model, the more opportunities that you can offer young people the opportunity to try new things and take risks without penalty, the better off they're going to be able to exercise their leadership ability within programs. It's also really important that you're offering constructive feedback and allowing opportunities to really engage in processes within your program that can further enhance their leadership ability. And lastly, probably the bulk of what I've heard from the service year field is that there is a need to provide supportive services for opportunity youth. And this is definitely a true statement, and often not easy to do, just due to some of the restraints from funding or the amount of time that we can spend on supportive services. But it's really important that opportunity youth have a wide range of individuals that can support them with gaining supportive services. And support can look very different, and depending on who you're speaking to and what their actual needs are. It can be both formal and informal. What we've learned that opportunity youth need emotional support. Perhaps there are people on your staff that are just those people that will pat them on the back when they're doing well, or work with them or talk with them when they're having a difficult day or experiencing various challenges. Perhaps opportunity youth, your staff could really help them to navigate problems and issues that they're having. In addition to that, identifying needed resources, and a lot of that will come through in your initial assessment, following up with them to ensure, do you have the appropriate support to make sure you're going to be successful? Are your immediate needs met? What are your practical needs right now? Do you have support for transportation? How are you getting back and forth? Those types of things, your staff will need to be equipped to do in offering these supportive services. I'll talk a little bit later in this presentation around if you're unable to offer supportive services internal to your program, what are some other strategies that you can use to make sure that your the opportunity youth in your program are blanketed with the type of supports that they need? In addition to providing those for essential program elements, we've learned that culture is so important to the success of opportunity youth. It actually is such a defining point that it determines whether a young person will finish your program and whether or not they will be able to achieve success afterwards. So I really want to spend some time today talking about some elements that we should incorporate into your service year model if you hope to engage opportunity youth. You want to make sure that within your program culture, you're offering authentic experiences and opportunities for opportunity youth. What that really means is that your program must be youth-centered. A lot of times I've learned from programs, service year programs, that they're really focused on some of the outputs and the outcomes. If you're engaging opportunity youth in your program, it's important that you're thinking first about the individuals that are serving in the program by offering them opportunities to advance, to build their leadership skills and technical skills, but also help them to enhance their own personal social agency. We believe that a youth-centered philosophy is really predicated on any person that really walks through your doors, making sure that you're helping them to achieve success, but you're also looking at their diverse preferences, talents, skills, and offerings in your program and in society. So looking at each young person and thinking about other ways that I can provide authentic experiences for young people within my program. It's important that young people, and we've heard this for so many of the interviews that we've conducted with young people, that they need to be able to walk into an environment where they know that they are cared for and supported by staff, but also their peers. We have the responsibility to create that type of culture to make sure that opportunity youth feel wanted in an environment and that they are not further marginalized or pushed out. One of the things that I think is really important to highlight, however, is that when we're thinking about creating this culture, it's important that the culture is very inclusive. And so some of the best strategies that we've seen is that many of the programs, service year programs that engage opportunity youth, have an open sharing time at the top of the day on a weekly basis, where opportunity youth get a chance to share their personal stories as well as their struggles and progress. This not only allows for them to elevate their voice, but also it allows for other peers to hear their stories and see how they may have been able to overcome it or offer guidance in those situations. As a best practice from like Youth Build USA, Public Allies, and Green City Corps, there has been open time for this sharing that allows young people to really talk about what their challenges, and who knows how those conversations can further help other young people within the program. One of the key things that I've heard in my conversations with a number of young leaders around raising their voice, they're really focused on how do I create this type of agency where I can raise my voice. And some of the best practices that we've seen is that some of the programs have offered opportunity youth to sit on their board or offered an advising board, so that they have opportunities to provide continuous feedback to staff about their experience. In some cases, you may not be able to make changes within your program model for that year, but by gaining this feedback, it allows you to make the appropriate changes for your next program year. In addition to that, offering clear, authentic leadership opportunities, and this is a really important piece. If you allow young people to lead in any capacity and you're going to leverage their voice to make decisions, it is important that you're going to be able to carry out strategies to make sure that you can implement what they stress. So we advise you to work with your staff to determine where those areas are. And not all decisions can be informed by youth, but we understand as much as you can make them a part of the process, the more that they feel like they have the agency within your organization to move forward, but personally within their lives as well. So in addition to those highlighted things that I named before, it's really important that we provide an inclusive, equitable environment where we're offering the same supports, individual supports to individuals, and that may look different for each person that we're speaking to or that we're working with at our Opportunity Youth. While there is no real science to establishing trust, we believe by implementing the essential elements and some of the areas around program culture will help to establish that type of trust. One of the things that I heard a resounding voice around is making sure that we as practitioners do what we say we're going to do. So if we propose some strategies that we're going to do at the top of a program, maybe during the recruitment process, that we're going to offer a training or offer a certain type of support, we have to ensure that we do that. In addition to that, some of the best practices that we've seen is having a program guide or policies and procedures that you will follow through that you're also expecting the young people to follow through. Trust can be easily broken if we're not following up or at least living up to what we said we were going to do to support Opportunity Youth. So it's really important that you do that within your program. In addition, I think it takes a unique person to really be able to work with young people and really be able to help them create the agency that they need for themselves. So as you identify and are developing your staff, it is important that you are looking for caring, empathetic staff members. Sometimes these individuals will come from similar backgrounds as Opportunity Youth in your program, but that is not a necessity. They don't need to do that. I think one of the key things is that they're able to better understand, regardless of their background, the assets and needs of the Opportunity Youth in order to help them to work through challenges. One of the things that we've seen so often is that sometimes in service year programs, the staff believes that they have come into a community to save a community or to save an individual. The key thing is that no one is going to save a community or an individual. It is important, though, that we provide the adequate support to make sure that young people are able to get on a pathway of success. So if you're looking for your staff member or you're thinking about your staff that could really help with Opportunity Youth, those are going to be ones that can understand the assets and needs of the Opportunity Youth. But they should also have some specialized skills and expertise in some of the following. And this is more definitely spelled out in the best practice guide. They need skills in harm reduction, ways to avoid continuous harm. A lot of Opportunity Youth have come from environments where there is a lot of violence and crime, whether it's in their homes or in their communities. So it's really important that your staff are trained on trauma and how to deal with trauma. Sometimes there are going to be situations, especially in communities, where there is violence that has recently occurred that you need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. They also need to be able to provide job readiness training and various different skills that can really help a young person, such as filling out an application, how to search for a job, how to do informational interviews with individuals that are career pathways or individuals from career pathways that they like to pursue. They also need to develop key life skills, like how do I manage my bank account? How do I make sure that I'm able to make it from one check to the next? How do I figure out and navigate the transportation system within a local area? Other key areas that staff should really be informed about is cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion, how to implement equitable practices that Opportunity Youth can benefit from. We understand that in thinking about your staff is that you're not just going to be providing this training and support to staff members that regularly engage with Opportunity Youth, but it should be blanketed over in your entire staff, whether they work in finance. Because it's really important, whether it's the receptionist that's working, it's really important that young people know that every person within your organization is supporting their progress. Secondly, that some of the components that we think that you should be thinking about in your culture is really planning out your service year. And for some service year programs, they do this really well. They have a very planned out, robust training schedule, all of the things that each person will do, all of the projects that they'll work on. But in reality, we also know that a lot of times we're building this work as we go. If you decide to commit to engaging Opportunity Youth, or you continue to engage Opportunity Youth, the more that you can carefully plan out your schedule, the more young people can be prepared for what they will do on a day-to-day basis, so that they're mentally prepared, they're ready to address what the work is or what the service will look like for the day. In addition, they can start to overcome other challenges and they're not distracted by the current multiple changes within your program. Some of the best practices that we've seen in this is incorporating an orientation period. And we've seen models where the orientation period is paid or unpaid. And this is a way where young people can come into your office for the day. It's a chance for them to meet staff. It's a chance for them to better understand the inner workings of your organization, what your mission is, what your vision is, how they're connected to those things. And in addition to that, you can offer some very clear courses that would allow them to be prepared for what service experience they will accomplish throughout the service year term. Then identifying, building out a training schedule with specific course offerings. For example, on this day, we will have training in this area. And it's okay if you don't have that built out for your entire year, but it's really important that you can do it maybe in, I've seen it done in quarterly time periods. So as we think about engaging Opportunity Youth, one of the key things that I've learned from the field is that in order to really decrease the number of Opportunity Youth within this country, that we're going to need to think about collective effort strategies. And what I've learned is that a lot of service year programs work in silos, and they're really internal to their program. So we want to really offer and think about leveraging supportive services through partnerships. And some of the ways that you may be able to do this is, for example, with housing, identifying key organizations that support individuals with housing. A lot of times, Department of Human Services or the local workforce boards will have organizations that provide services for all populations within a particular area, but specifically you need to develop relationships with individuals in each one of these categories, so that if you cannot provide the supportive services that are necessary internal to your program, you may be able to connect them to resources outside of your program. What's key here is that it's not just about knowledge of who those agencies are or what organizations can support them, but learn the inner workings of those organizations. Because when you refer a young person, a lot of times they can get lost and just trying to navigate the process. So as much as you can know up front about what a young person will experience when they go to that agency, the better off they're going to be. That could be, what documentation are they going to need when they get there? How long will they be there? Who will they talk to when they arrive there? And then in addition to that, how long will this process take for them to overcome whatever barrier it is? So we invite you to really look deeply within the best practice guide about what types of clear partnerships you can establish locally to better support Opportunity Youth. And a lot of times, these agencies will be excited about the young people participating, and they will be able to just offer, a lot of times they can work with you to offer supportive services during your off-service hours. We've also learned that collective impact really occurs when organizations really agree to solving problems using a common agenda. So I've noticed that a lot of service year programs will talk about their own programs only. It is important that you align your agenda to meet their needs. So some of the examples that I've seen in doing this has been, for example, if they're for a program here in Chicago called Green Corps Chicago, they had a lot of individuals that had child support issues. So one of the things that they did was develop a partnership with Department of Human Services, particularly focusing on child support services, and connect the men in their program to that particular resource. And then in turn, through that partnership, anyone that came through the Child Support Services office was also learned about the service year program that they could engage in Green Corps. So some other key ways that you should be thinking about partnerships is, for example, for outreach and recruitment, looking at programs that are local or in the communities that you're serving to make sure that they know about your recruitment window, how many people you're actually recruiting, what types of service opportunities or experiences will they have within that program year. That's a really good way to, especially for Opportunity Youth, because if a young person has been working with an organization or an agency exclusively, and then they come to your program, you can work with their leadership team to make sure that that person is on a pathway to success. In addition to that, during the service year, of course, there are a ton of different social services that you can work through with your program to maybe offer. Perhaps there are free courses at a local university that they're offering that young people have expressed interest in, working with them to make sure that they're able to offer those courses maybe in the evenings or on off days or over the weekend. And then naturally, there's going to need to be some strategies to really engage and make sure that Opportunity Youth are on a pathway to success post the service year. So those are your employment partners. Those are your training partners that you should be working with to make sure that every young person that leaves your program is connected to a pathway and that their service year experience has been meaningful to them. That is my last slide. So I want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have. And as I mentioned before, this is just a 1 hour presentation. Of course, our best practice guide will be a lot more robust, and we'll offer you specific guidance on how to create the best model for Opportunity Youth.
Thank you, Monique. This is Brian. And just to let people know logistically for the best practice guide, that will be coming out with a debrief. We record all of our webinars, so you as participants will receive this, and this webinar will also go up on our resource hub for anybody who was unable to make this webinar, so that we can, pass along the great work that has been done here and all these opportunities. But there is more in the guide, and everybody on this call and webinar will get it. We definitely have somebody who is Public Allies alum, Celia. Thank you for your service. And she just wrote in, Monique, that she agrees that these opportunities are a great pathway, that she was an alum, served 2006 to 2008 in Phoenix, and she was 21 with some college experience, but not a job that meant anything. And since doing her service, she's worked in nonprofits along with AmeriCorps for the last 12 years. So just an example, she's giving us kudos, but also telling her story. And thank you again, Celia, for your service of an example of what you're talking about.
Thank you so much for your service. I am excited to hear that your service year experience really paved the way for you to engage in further work after that time. So that's exciting news.
There really isn't any other questions, but I had just kind of one as we end, Monique. I mean, this is great, and the guide has different programs and examples of what to pull for your program and thinking about these things. You know, if you could just, like, at the end of this, maybe synthesize, like, for programs, what is the benefit here? I mean, you know, there's a lot of great program models here, but, you know, for me, when I'm listening to all this, it's Celia's story. It's the new, the next generation in the workforce development kind of side of things that service is so well poised to fill that need. So can you just maybe give a little bit at the end here of, like, you know, what is the benefit for programs, and, like, what, you know, what does this help achieve from a program and a core member side at the end of the day?
Very good question. Thank you, Brian. I think first and foremost, we have a tremendous opportunity here to really engage our future leaders and make sure that they are very civically engaged as they move forward. I think this is the U.S.'s most vulnerable population, and we really could benefit by helping them to hone their skills. And I think that there is extraordinary talent among Opportunity Youth. And if they have just been embraced or not been a part of maybe some of the failed systems that they've been a part of, I think that there is a huge opportunity for them to strive for greatness. And I think that every person probably that is listening into this conversation has personally made a commitment to really bring out the best in young people and really focus on those areas. I think the other thing is that oftentimes we're looking for different types of talents, especially for programs that may not be engaging Opportunity Youth now. And maybe there has been some apprehensions around not having really the capacity to really support young people. But what we found is that Opportunity Youth have, because they're desperately looking for pathways for success, I think that they could be an excellent addition to your teams and helping you to achieve your overall mission within a community or within the organization. We talked about the assets that they bring, their ability to multitask, their ability to overcome adverse circumstances. And a lot of times people don't know how to navigate things, especially young people, but Opportunity Youth are so unique in that way that they come to your programs with a level of passion and commitment. And I think that if we pour into them, they will then pour back into the organization, their peers, but then ultimately the community at large. So I just think that this is just such an excellent group of people that we can begin to work with, that just with a little bit of heart and a little bit of guidance and our steadfast commitment to our future leaders, the better off they're going to be at achieving success and ultimately helping our organizations and communities achieve success as well.
Thank you for Monique. I don't think that was a great way to end our webinar series. Thank you. Those were really great words there. We don't have any other questions except for there was one last logistical question, so I thought I'd go on to our last slide. When we do send a debrief, we will send a link to the recording. We will also send the presentation. Just know that we will take out Jermaine's story and just put the link on YouTube because it is a large file for us to embed, but you can get the PowerPoint. And you'll also be connected to Monique directly through her email address. So as you look to incorporate some of these best practices or want to reach out to her more, you'll have direct access to her through our debrief as well, and that'll come out in the next couple of days. We're just putting the final touches on the guide itself, so that we want to be able to send that guide out to all of you who participated today. I want to thank Monique Ellington and all her work that she's been doing for an Opportunity Youth and for the service year field, and bringing all these best practices together has been a labor of love over the last year. I also want to end the webinar thanking the Schultz Family Foundation for their support and generous partnership in this road in the last year with Monique. Thank you. And then just saying, all of our current websites are on the about.serviceyear.org/webinars. We will be taking a small break for July, but back in August with a webinar around, we've been doing some work on helping programs with their service year fairs and how to engage universities and how universities to engage programs when it comes to around recruitment. So we'll be back in August for some of those conversations. Before we sign off, any last minute words, Monique?
Sure. In the following week, we'll have a webinar specifically for, these are programs that engage Opportunity Youth, but maybe are not a service year model. So I invite you, in our follow-up email, we'll send more information about this particular webinar. This webinar, the Expanding Opportunities Through Service Years for Opportunity Youth, is a different webinar in the sense that this is specifically for maybe workforce development programs or youth programs or community-based organizations that would like to build a service model to further engage the Opportunity Youth that they're working with. So please think about networks that you're a part of that could participate in this and they would like to design a service year. We'll talk about some of the key strategies to do that. And that will happen next week. So in the email that we send over to you, you can just respond to that if you have someone's email address that you think should be a part of that particular webinar. Otherwise, and then we can just forward an invite to you that you can share with your network. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm also willing to answer any questions as you look at the guide directly about how you can engage more Opportunity Youth in your program and develop the appropriate program elements. Thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Thank you, Monique, and thank you, everyone.